Is this me going live? It is me going live. I'm so excited. So welcome to today's. As you can see, I did not have a very fancy backend setup. We have my YouTube, but I'm very excited because we are going to go behind the scenes into an SEO Mini. I'm gonna give it a minute because honestly, there's a little bit of delay and I have to get used to it. Um, but we're going to follow a very similar pattern as what I usually do for a client. And actually, it's going to be exactly what I do, not what I usually do, considering this is a client. So you'll notice that I have a notebook. I am very much a pen and paper person. So everything that I do is essentially I'll go through what I see, I write stuff down, and for our purposes today, I'm going to speak out loud and kind of walk through like what I'm looking for, what I'm looking at, why it even matters, and how this is going to help me in the implementation process. So with an audit optimization, whether it's an SEO mini or you're doing the full, which is what I like to call my everything but the kitchen sink for SEO, is we're looking for things that we have to fix first, but we also have to look at the overall health of the website because you can't fix something that's not broken. And you also don't want to lose any type of SEO that you already have. That's a huge thing. We can always accidentally mess up our SEO without knowing, especially in processes like these where we're looking at overall things. But if you want to go ahead and say hi for watching, just a hello, it's me. And ask any questions you go along. I will periodically look to the chat. I'm only going to go into about 15 to 20 minutes of what this looks like because if we're truly going to sit here and audit and optimize an entire site, we are going to be here for a hot minute. We will be here for a hot minute. I won't lie. This is a week-long process, so a usual mini takes 7 days from kickoff to fully optimized site. So yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so for today's site, we are looking at the tax keeper. So this is a bookkeeper and tax consultant. Hi. And we're going to look at a few different things. So immediately something that I'm going to have to know, and this is literally the process. I start just by looking at their website and noting a few very important things. So H1 on this page, we're going to have to add an H1. So with situations like this, what we look at is potentially adding eyebrow text or underline, which either one can be an H1 but that's very important. So this is likely an H1, but what I'm talking about is more of an optimized H1. All right, so stop DIYing. Okay, we've got keywords in here. This is for sure good. And then the user experience. So user experience is something I look for in the beginning because it's something I like to address in the beginning. So immediately here we have like a little bit of a gap in her footer. So that's something I'm going to note down. Actually, in past minis, there's been situations where we've redesigned footers because your footer and header play a larger role than you think they do for accessibility and user experience, just making sure that people can access the things on your website and make sure they get to where they need to be. So overall, that seems to be that for that page. Let's take a look at the services. Taxes, bookkeeping advice. So again, H1, the deets, very clear. Okay. If you're like, Michaela, why are you speaking this way? And it's just this is my thought process, and this is how we truly walk through things to kick off contact. Now, contact pages are very underutilized in the world of SEO and occasionally copywriting too. We have a lot of opportunity to support our main keyword strategy, but we also don't want the contact pages or about pages to hurt us in the fact that they might have less text. So a concern here is she doesn't have a lot of content on the page, and we always want to have a minimum of 300 words. Otherwise, Google can hit us for like thin content. We don't want that either. And then our blog. So our blog button does not work in header. But otherwise, this looks like user experience wise, we're looking pretty good. All right, so let's go to our on-demand crawl. This is where I go to next. So I did have to go ahead and run this because I have other client work in here, and this actually takes a few minutes to run, but this is in the back end of my SEO tool. So it essentially gives me a heads up on any issues that it notices. So for example, we have a few that title are too long. We have missing descriptions, missing or invalid H1s. So that's going to be a bigger concern here is those invalid H1s or missing H1s. Um, when it comes to title too long, it really just depends because what happens is we have, so if we click on this and I go down and I kind of check things out, I can kind of see why it's too long. So the title itself, so if we have a too long title, Google will truncate it. So they will clip off the end and nobody will see it. But for example, here we have 7 benefits of outsourcing your bookkeeping this year. So that is the actual title that I'm concerned about. And then the end, what's causing it to be too long is just the fact that it has the tax keeper. So that's not actually a huge concern. But yeah, if we just come through these, I check them just to make sure there isn't anything that is a concern. Content is fine. So yeah, so on that, it's fine. But then we got to look at these missing and invalid H1s because that is an issue. So yeah, we're missing an H1 on the contact page. So again, I added in my notes. And what is really cool is I have this process where I literally walk through stuff on not a video, but kind of through a voice note. And so I have my notes and I have my video recording and I have all these little reports, and then my VA and I go through and compile it to make sure that we're not missing anything, and then we'll compare it to what an optimized site looks like to make sure we're not missing any of the little things. So yeah, so all these are, we have some like pagination pages, so that's not the end of the world. It just means that we have to fix it on the blog page, which is within the realm of the mini. The same with the tax archives. So honestly, those are the main issues for there. Now I do like to run a page through heading check. And if you've ever seen me do like a mini check in on a website, I sporadically do those on like threads, occasionally an email where I'll take around 5 websites and do like a really quick crawl through. But yeah, so we're just going to see. So this is registering that there's multiple H1s, and this is why we use multiple tools. So this has multiple H1s on header, on homepage. Okay, so any other day I would walk through every single page, but I'm not going to bore you with that one. But what we are going to look at was we're going to do a broken link check so that we have this information as well. We're going to like that process, and then we're going to hop over to our performance, and we're going to look in Search Console first, and then we're actually going to look in the tool as well, because we're going to look at more than just the actual site performance in search. We're also going to look at the off-page performance. So I have a general idea of like where this site is starting before I make any changes. And so we're going into Google Search Console and we're looking for keywords that they're already ranking for, because one, we want to build, if Google is starting to show them for this, there's a reason. So we can take the opportunity to build on it, or if it's for the wrong thing, we can figure out why it's creating these results and then remove what's causing this. Also, we don't want to cannibalize any that have already been used for the blog content. So we have to make sure that is also kept in mind for the keyword strategy. Honestly, the keyword strategy and implementation for a mini is truly one of the highlights of it, just because it aligns the entirety of the page to a purpose. So for example, here we have our pages. So for homepage, and we are doing 3 months. Let's look. So tax keeper. So these are branded keywords. That's exactly what we want to see. So branded keywords are anything relating to your brand. Or if you have programs that have very signature brands. So like I have Pod to Blog. So I have a page that actually ranks for Pod to Blog. And that is considered a branded keyword. But then we also have Business Accountants Phoenix, Small Business CPA Arizona, an accountant near me, which is not honestly bad. A lot of people search accountant and bookkeeper as if they were the same thing, and we do have to keep that in mind in our research, even if she is not technically an accountant. She is also not a CPA, so we have to be careful with this. She is a tax consultant, but not a CPA, so that is also something we have to pay attention to. Now, Google will do what Google does, but we have to make sure that there's no copy that may be saying that we are a CPA when we aren't. And sometimes it's even that she said that she's not a CPA, and that can kind of influence those results as well. But then we also have things like bookkeeping service. So we're on the right track with this. So we have bookkeeping service. So that's an opportunity for me to do some deeper keyword research. Bookkeeping service. And then we look at the next page, bookkeeping Chandler, bookkeeping small business. So that's another one, bookkeeper for small business, that I can get into. Small business bookkeeper. So that looks like it's a good opportunity to like dive into this one. Check for schema, for example, FAQ, and another schema. How do I check? So when you check for schema, you need to go to rich results, and you'll run the page through rich results. You can also open page source and check for schema that way as well. Bookkeeping services. So she actually recently moved away from Arizona, so this is not relevant either. So we have to be careful with that as well. Let's see. But again, as we can see, we're starting to see a lot of this bookkeeper for small business bookkeeper. So that's going to be a highlight of the direction that I go in for her strategy. Because again, we don't want to lose what we already have. So tax enthusiast. She's not really a tax enthusiast. She's a tax consultant. I don't know how enthusiastic I would say anyone is truly about taxes. So tax enthusiast. Let's see. Services. So services, no. As you see, I'm skipping past this content because again, we're only focusing on the core of her website and then her blog. So tax keeper. So that's more of a branded keyword as well. Okay, and then let's go back to this broken link. So we actually have no broken links, so that's golden. Love it. No broken links. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at her backlinks. So how I do that is I just go into my tool again. And again, this is not foolproof, and you can see this in Search Console, so you can dig through here and find it. Links. I guess I could show you that as well. But what I'm going to do is go into Moz and see what we have going on. But we're going to do, look at the keywords that Moz says, and see how they align. So they're all content as well, keeper's tax. Okay. See, the difference between this and Search Console is this is not just looking at one platform. It's not like it is not only pulling from, say, Google. It's looking at search engines in general versus Google Search Console, which is specifically for search, for Google search, obviously. But then we look at these discovered and lost linking domains. So we have websites crawl. That's not something I'm concerned about. Linking domains. So She does not really have too many backlinks, so that's definitely an opportunity. Although we do have relay, which is awesome because that aligns directly with what she's got. Um, spam score. Okay, so she's in a good place. So here's an interesting thing. So you can see your spam score, and this is not like an end all be all, but it kind of it looks at the health of the websites that are linking to you. Now that is not always within your control, but we don't want to have too many what is considered spammy websites linking to your website, because just as a good backlink helps your website, a spammy backlink can hurt your website, especially if there's an influx of them. Luckily, Google and other search engines tend to notice that they are spammy and normally like, well, they can't really control that, but there are situations where it doesn't, and you can start to see impact from it. So at this point, I have a pretty good idea of what her website looks like. So the state of her website, some common issues, and then now I get to look at the actual structure. So this is her behind the scenes. We kind of have to. I'm going to look at. I'm not saying we kind of have to. You're with me. Look at what these are and how they're stacked. So when it comes to Show It in particular is kind of bad about this, is the way your stuff is stacked. So we want to make sure it's always in the order that it is on your page. Listen up, view services, stop DIYing. So like, I know I'm making a mental note that when I go through and do the optimization portion of this, that there's going to be a good bit of reorganizing. But it doesn't look like she has any orphan pages, which is awesome. We have our legal pages, which is legally required. So from this initial thing, so what I would do now is this would pretty much be it for my first walkthrough. I essentially will go back to the drawing board and address some concerns I have with the client. So for Mari, the tax keeper, one of my main concerns that is going to take more time is this contact us page. It's about potentially adding more copy to the contact us, whether she would like to do it or whether she would like to outsource this to me while we were going into it, just because it's not built into the mini, but it is a concern. So just because something is not in the mini does not mean you're not going to be aware of it. So one thing that I'm also going to look at is in Search Console, and this is towards the end, is I'm going to look at like core web vitals and make sure everything's up to speed, and look at, gosh, where did it go? You know, this is like how Zoom, I always go into Zoom and I act like it's my first time in there, even though I'm on Zoom at least multiple times a week. But I'll go in here, pages and indexing, and look at why stuff is not being indexed, so that no index and currently not indexed, and do all that. And then towards the end, after I've created the strategy, I've put everything together into a pretty report, I will actually optimize the pages. So I will go through and make sure everything is in good health. This pre-audit kind of just tells me where I need to spend the most time, how long it's going to take me, the strategy that I need for each page. It's going to influence that, as well as starting to pull together things like schema for service pages, or if she had an FAQ page, then I'll know that, make a note that I need to have that on there as well. Or site schema, which also varies based on builder. So for example, she's on Show It, so she doesn't have the built-in, but say we go to Squarespace, they have a built-in. So I have to see, okay, is this correct schema? So a few different things, also setting up her Google Analytics. And if she doesn't have that already, she has her Search Console, which is great. But if she did not, then that would also be included in the mini. So it truly is setting up the core foundation and checking. I don't want to say it's just the vitals, because it is a bit more than the vitals, but we are looking at the entirety of how people are going to interact and how Google and search engines are going to interact with this core piece of your website. So that is the audit process. I would love to take you through the optimization process, but again, that would take so long, which is why it's spread over a week. I love if you've been around, then you remember the spooky specials back in October, which will probably bring another one where I did it in a day, but that is a once in a while thing. If you have any questions, please go ahead and drop them in the chat, like about this process or about anything that I did. Again, it's not the all encompassing. We'd be here for a minute, but I did want to give you an insight into like what I'm looking for and how these strategies start coming together. Because again, you can't do an optimization without an audit. You can't get into it without starting to highlight some of these different things that are going wonky, that are working, and we don't want to mess up anything, especially like if you're doing a site migration or if you're moving to a no domain or if you've just had your site for a while and now it's time for time to get it in where you need to be. Yeah, so I'm so excited. I almost I was actually almost gonna ask you if you wanted me to do yours for this one. But I wasn't sure about the onboarding because it was a tight turnaround. So I was like, I'll do the tax keeper. She's already got her stuff in there, but yours is like the highlight of my week. I'm going on vacation, then I'm coming back to yours. I'm like, honestly, minis have been my favorite thing because honestly, you do not need all the things for SEO. And this has been my motto for this entire year and last year is that you do not need all the things all the time. Having all the things is amazing and it's great, but not having all the things is also just as good. The main thing is just having this core piece before you start building other things. Because if you're going to spend all your time on Instagram or if you're going to spend all your time on LinkedIn and threads, but you're still pointing people back to your site, you can still build your SEO by having your site in the right place, by having it optimized and doing that core piece before you get into anywhere else. So not really SEO related, but what is your favorite way to get access to a client search console? So this is something that I do in my onboarding process is I essentially request access. And if they do not have it set up, then I request access to their DNS settings to go ahead and do that for them. I do keep all of my client search consoles in a separate email so that it's easier for monitoring. And my regular email does not get blown up with search console notifications. I'll say another interesting thing with the Mini is that it's not just Google Search Console. We actually set up your Bing Webmaster account as well to make sure that it is submitted everywhere, and we implement schema, which I think I already mentioned, but I'm going to call it for the day. If you have any last minute questions, go ahead and get them in. There is a slight delay between, because I am going through Riverside, so there is a slight delay. So but in the meantime, if you did want to grab a mini, I am opening some spots for March, and you can put those on a 3-part payment plan. That is only available very temporarily because it is a lower ticket. But thank you all so much for being here. Literally thrilled, and I love doing like a little behind the. I love going behind the scenes. I love seeing how things work. So I feel like it's cool to share it as well. But until next time, guys. I end this.